Hawaii considering the ban on the sale of burned houses and land to prevent developers from trying to, quote, steal land. Interesting. What could go wrong? I'm from the government and I'm here to help. This is yet another perfect example of the road to hell being paved with good intentions. Most people would see this and say, look, this is good. They're protecting them from predatory developers. Even going as far as reminding them, referencing here in this article, how they had their land stolen and seized back in 1893 and then transferred to the United States. But these things are not the same. Having your land seized and stolen by insurrectionists at the end of the 19th century is not the same as getting paid by a developer with your own free will in 2023. Kudos to economist and podcaster Peter Schiff for pointing this out, but a piece of land is a large piece of a person's net worth. And considering the expensive cost of housing and the perhaps lack of coverage from certain home insurance, dealing with a burnt down house and being displaced is an arduous process, especially now, with the cost of building a home, lumber, supplies, etc. being so high, and the fact that you'd have to build the entire new house, wait for it to be built, design it, rent another place until the house is ready, etc. If an adult chooses with their own free will to accept money so that they don't have to deal with that, how could the government block that? As Peter Schiff points out in his latest podcast, essentially what they're saying is, you are too stupid to figure out whether or not you're getting a good deal accepting money for your land. And because you're not smart enough to figure out whether or not you want to sell your own assets, we are going to prevent you from doing so. It's highly probable that this is not even legal and would get challenged in court. But all that time lost while this was held up could prevent these people from moving on with their life. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that it's good that these people are calling the next day, but to suggest that people are too stupid to figure out whether or not they want to sell their own property is pretty not good. Nobody is forcing them to sell it. Nobody's got a gun to their head convincing them to do this. If they decide that this is the right decision, whether it's a week from now, a month from now, right now, or 3 months from now, if they step in and stop them from making these transactions, it's only going to add insult to injury. Now, there's also rules about holding land. You still have to pay taxes on land even if there's nothing there. And I highly doubt that having a burnt down house, for example, on a piece of land is okay to just leave there for the next 8 months. What if you can't afford it? What if your insurance didn't cover enough of it? What if you can't afford to build the new house? What if you can't afford the rent to wait? If you can't sell, which in so many instances is somebody's largest asset, you're trapped, and this actually puts you in a worse position. Now, I'm certainly not advocating for people to sell or suggesting that the scumbaggery of people taking advantage, or at least trying to take advantage of some people, is a good thing. But to suggest that all developers or all people that are looking to invest in this land and all people that might be willing to sell are being manipulated or abused, I think is incorrect. And this top-down approach of some bureaucrat saying you can't do this doesn't seem fair to me. And of course, if you think of it in the guise where it's like, oh, they're just trying to protect you. Who asked for this protection? Don't pick the call up. Say no. You're an adult. But here's where it gets really dicey. The governor was interviewed very shortly after this disaster, and he made comments that he was already thinking of ways that the state could buy up this land to preserve it for local residents. Now, people on the internet connecting the dots that may or may not exist and suggesting that maybe this is to build some smart city is now being fact-checked like this. It's even gone as far as the Associated Press fact-checking and saying, no, he did not say that he wants to make it a smart city. Now, I'm not suggesting he did, but here is what he did actually say out of his own literal face. I'm already thinking about ways for the state to acquire that land so it can be put into workforce housing to put back into families or make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial to people who were lost. Think about what he's really actually saying there. Put it into workforce housing or make it open spaces. Well, if it's an open space, that means it gets acquired by the bureaucracy, acquired by the government. I don't think that the government is going to be negotiating a price. And if they're going to turn it into open spaces or workforce housing financed by the state, that means the taxpayers, those people included, are financing for their land to be taken by the state with only one buyer. If you can't negotiate with the developer, the government takes it. They're going to say, here's the price, here's what you're getting for it, it's ours now. That's much more predatory than choosing with your own free will to sell it to a developer, is it not? Am I missing something? And remember, these people are professional swindlers. They're professional liars. They're professional word manipulators. You have to look and read into the context of what they're saying. They put it in this fancy sentence, but listen to what he's actually saying. They're going to block you from being able to sell to developers to supposedly preserve your land from being stolen. Then they might buy it. That's what he said. Now, this is the fact check article from AP talking about how he didn't say he was going to turn it into a smart city. But look at what he actually did say. We don't want this to become a clear space where then, yes, people from overseas just come and decide they're going to take it. They're not taking it. If they came from overseas and they chose to purchase it with money, and then a person chose to accept that money, they're not taking it. But then look, the state will take it and preserve it first. The only taking, and yes, you could say the state is taking it in the sense that they're buying it, but there's not a negotiation there. And whatever, we can get hung up in the weeds on this, but you understand what I'm saying. Because what they're saying that they're doing is preventing people from being victimized by opportunistic buyers. All buyers are opportunistic. Everyone is looking for opportunity. And being victimized is not you choosing to do something out of your own free will. Maybe that's in a certain case or some cases, but certainly not reasonable to say all, or that all should be banned because of that. And this opportunity, remember, these are plots of land that just burnt to the ground in a natural disaster, will likely have expensive insurance going forward, could take months if not years to rebuild in an environment that's very expensive. So this supposed opportunity is also wrought with risk. They don't know how long it's going to take to clear this land, rebuild these roads, rebuild these power lines. They don't know what the insurance costs are going to be or the cost of building a home is going to be. Materials, all that other stuff is expensive. And then, of course, you have the bureaucrats stepping in and saying, oh, we might let you sell it, we might not let you sell it. So there's a risk there, a time suck there. There's a lot of risk. A lot of risk that a person that already owns this piece of land or house that just got perhaps financially destroyed may not be willing or able to take. But if you block their ability to sell their greatest asset that they would choose to do on their own free will, you're basically just saying they're too stupid to make their own decisions. Yet another perfect example of the road to hell being paved with good intentions, with a overbearing, centralized, top-down approach from some bureaucrat telling what you can't do with your own life and property. And it's always under the guise of protecting you, because of course. They couldn't protect you from this, but they'll protect you from the predatory land buyers. Seems totally legit if you don't think about things or know how history plays out. I wish nothing for the best for the people of Hawaii, and obviously am touched and saddened by this terrible tragedy, which likely had a lot to do with negligence more so than nature. But people need to understand is that people who really care about the little guy and what happens to them, don't always follow what appears to be the most obvious answer, but they think it through with care and depth. They consider the result, not just the feel-good talking point of the moment. I hope that people will consider donating to some Hawaii foundations like the Maui United Way, the Hawaii Community Foundation, or a multitude of different charities and whatnot that are supporting these victims. You can find a pretty good list on CBS News. But I hope, and I know that most of you smart enough to even follow this video up to this point, will know that what I am actually saying and what economists like Peter Schiff is saying is that top-down bureaucratic solutions typically don't work. They backfire. And blocking these residents, suggesting that they're too stupid to figure out whether or not they want to sell their asset, not considering what that would actually mean for them, is just another example of a bloated, supposedly feel-good bureaucracy, and people collecting their supposed good boy points, their fake compassion, actually causes more harm than it does good. And most people that think it's an incredible shame that we ship billions and billions and hundreds of billions of dollars overseas to fund proxy wars and other nations, while people like those in Maui are suffering, and the best they can do is block them from selling their own property. But what do I know? You know what I mean?